So my name is Nashat. I'm from the Center for Egyptian Women's Legal Assistance, currently the advocacy coordinator. I joined SULA 9 years ago, and the main reason why I joined is because I felt that to give back to the society from one end, from another end, it was post-revolution. I was young. I believed, and still believe that nothing can change without us people who are living in this country doing something for this country. I always believe that we as women we're a driving force, and we're fierce. Yet we're being discriminated against, and we're being violated in so many ways. The revolution was an igniting moment for me that we need to start. We need to do something. It's our time right now. And that's the main reason I joined SULA and shifted my whole career from a physicist to currently a lawyer, but also focusing on advocacy and the UN system and what can be done for our country. So So SULA is it's a leading organization, feminist organization in Egypt that focuses on the private sphere. We work on both women in private sphere and public sphere. However, women in private sphere usually they are not given the highlights, or they are not given the focus that they need to be given. We were one of the first organizations working on the taboo issues such as incest, for example. We're talking about trafficking in women, the local forms of trafficking, for example, the ones that are not even recognized for so long. They were not recognized by the state, such as some forms of child marriage. We focus also on combating violence against women, domestic violence in all shapes and forms. Marital rape is one of our main focuses in our job. Also, we work on combating FGM. We address the culture itself, why FGM is spreading, why it's there, why it's a phenomenon. It's something that has been there for thousands and thousands of years. So we need to tackle this issue down to the deepest of its roots. Also, one of the issues that we work on is the legislations, the access to justice. And one of the main laws that we work on is the family law, or as it's called in Egypt, it's the person status law. We have two kinds of person status laws in Egypt, one for the Muslims and one for the Christians. Both discriminate greatly against women. The philosophy of the person status laws for both Muslims or the Christians, it says that the man is the head of the family. Our struggle as feminists or as feminist movement is not against men, it's against the patriarchal culture that actually control every aspect of our life. It controls the legislations, it controls the policies, it controls our culture, and it controls how the society is dealing with women and girls nowadays. Person stats law itself is one example of how the culture of this patriarchal notions are discriminating against women. Divorce is one example. For Christian men and Christian women, they cannot even get divorced. They need a permission from the church first, which is something that goes against the principles of citizenship. Because as citizens, we need to be governed by one law, not several laws. From that point, we can talk about how the patriarchal system is looking at men, because even within the laws, for example, the person status laws for both Muslims or Christians, it looks at men as if they are banks, only ATMs. And this is also a problem because it does not look at them as fathers, as husbands, as people with certain responsibilities towards their own partners or to their own offsprings. This problem exactly creates a deviation within the family, that one person is responsible for the care while the other is responsible for the finances. Polygamy is still allowed in several areas. It's not restricted as people or some institutions try to advocate for this. What we're calling for is a more just and a fairer law for everyone, an equitable law for both women and men. Because even if we are taking into consideration the best interest of the child, and it's one of the top priorities that the feminist movement in general and Sula in particular is calling for, the best interest of the children should not come on the expense of women's well-being. And this is a very tricky, very important principle that we deal with. We've been calling for amending the laws for over 15 or 17 years right now. What we did with our proposal is that we traveled across the country. We asked different communities, different people with different backgrounds, what do they want to see? Even when we came up with the first draft, we traveled again to ask people about what they think, what should be eradicated, what should be edited, how can we deal with the issues of polygamy, with divorce, with matrimonial assets, because it's not even recognized in the law. So, how can we do this? It took us years, 17, 15 years to be exact, until we have currently our draft law. We've proposed that, we've submitted this for the last parliament and the current parliament. Unfortunately, it hasn't been discussed because women's issues are not seen as a priority, unfortunately. And it takes a strong political will in order to enforce equality and justice, whether in the family or in the public sphere. So there are So there are different types actually of violence that women in Egypt face. It's like every other country, to be honest. And this is an important issue that we need to take into consideration, that all women everywhere is facing discrimination and is facing violence somehow, and the system worldwide is failing to protect women. But to name a few of the forms of violence, especially against Egyptian women, we have high rates of, unfortunately, of sexual harassment. It is true that there are now some attempts to remedy this phenomenon somehow. It's not yet enough, but there are some efforts. Women are getting more and more encouraged to report sexual harassment incidents. The social media is playing a great role in this, whether in the reporting or in the discussions made to change people's minds about or perceptions about what sexual harassment is and what sexual violence is. Also, there is a high percentage of spousal violence and family violence against girls and women. And this is also something that we have recorded through Sula, that brothers and fathers, they have high rates of violence against their siblings or against their daughters, for example. And unfortunately, we do not have a law to combat, a comprehensive law to combat violence against women and children in that sense, which is we are in dire need for it. Also, some of the discrimination that we face, we usually document, is that discrimination at the workspace, because many women would lose their jobs or lose incentives, for example, if they got married or if they got children. Yes, the labor law supposedly protect these women. Unfortunately, especially for those who are based on a year 2 year contract, usually their contract do not get renewed, and this is a loophole actually in the sense, because women are not protected from this kind of discrimination. Again, appointing women in public positions and decision making positions, we only have, for example, it's 8 or 30%, I believe, of the cabinets are women, which is great if we look at the percentages, but there are only 8 ministers as of a very high number out of, I think, 20 something or 30 something. So, again, this is also still an issue. Women are not allowed so far to submit their application to become judges. The recent female judges who took the oath, they were all appointed. They did not go through the normal process that we want them to go through, because it's part of their constitutional right, it's part of their human rights to be treated equally, and their application should be looked at based on the criteria of efficiency, effectiveness, and cleverness as their male partners, but not to be appointed. Yes. Appointed. Yes, because women human rights defenders, they talk of such things, they are getting attacked, whether by the media or their social media followers or non politically affiliated people or even people affiliated politically to certain parties or certain institutions. Human rights defenders, women human rights defenders, they are called anti religion, they are called anti family, for example, because they are calling for equality. They are not calling for resolving the family, they're calling for equality, and they are being attacked for it. We have seen women human rights defenders pictures, for example, put in media newspapers or on social media, calling them whores, calling them traitors, receiving funds from abroad to ruin the image of the country. We've seen a lot of smearing campaigns against these women. And we have seen smearing campaigns targeting them because of their social status, whether they are married, not married, or divorced, or whatever, or because of their gender, because they are just women. This is what's being said to women human rights defenders. From another point, they are still judicially harassed. We've seen someone like Azza Sulaiman, for example. She was acquitted from the case 173, which is known as the NGO foreign funding case, and she was put on the list of the travel ban list and the asset freeze list. And instead of just letting her free or letting her fly and letting her work and just put the case behind her, she was transferred her appeal to travel and to lift the ban, the asset freeze. Her appeal was transferred to terrorism circuit, which is very alarming because why she's being referred there? Why is she being targeted and treated as a terrorist? She's a human rights defender. She's a lawyer. She wasn't bombing anyone. She was defending the rights of people, of marginalized groups. We have someone like Isra Abdel Fattah, another woman human rights defender, yani, whose appeal still in court to travel to lift the asset freeze as well, and they are not giving her any document regarding it. Yani, they are still postponing the sessions. They are still not giving her reasons. What are the real charges against her? She still doesn't know. Isra Abdel Fattah and Azza Sulaiman are two of great examples of what's really going on with human rights defenders. Yes, they are Egyptians, but this is resonates with almost every other human rights defender around the world. Those who are fighting inequality and injustice, they are being targeted, they are being fought against, and they are being called names and called traitors. Despite for the love of the country that they have, they are being attacked all the time because they work for what they believe in. Human rights. What they believe in. Human rights defenders in Egypt, they did a lot of great things. For example, they were the nucleus of the feminist movement. For example, when calling for eradicating all sorts of discrimination against women, on combating violence against women. We've seen fierce women going to the parliament and talking to the government in order to amend the person stats law, in order to have a law, a comprehensive law that combats violence against women, for example. Many of these defenders, they have uh, put their lives at risk at some point, or reputation at risk, because they are trying to protect girls from domestic violence, something that is widespreading, unfortunately, but also we lack the mechanism to ensure the protection of girls and of women against such violence. We have defenders who've established well known organizations in the region. They are, or in the country itself. They work locally, they work internationally, and they work regionally on, for example, the CEDAW convention, how to enforce it, how to translate it into laws, how to follow up on the CEDAW. We have other human rights defenders who created opportunities for economic empowerment, for example, those who are working on amending the trafficking legislations, highlighting why we need to take care of certain local forms that makes women or girls more prone to trafficking and more vulnerable to trafficking, instead of being protected by the states, and we need to take care of such forms. Currently, the feminist movement in Egypt, specifically, or the human rights defenders in Egypt, what they are doing is it's an amazing job because they are risking their lives every day by facing the patriarchal notions, by saying no to violence, by trying to protect girls and protect women from different aspects of violence in different forms, whether this violence is being perpetuated by non-state actors or fathers or brothers or whoever, or a state actor even. Some of them are being prosecuted for it. Some are prosecuted because of their call for freedom of speech, because of writings, of articles they wrote about equality, for example. This is now the time to celebrate human rights defenders, the women human rights defenders, instead of targeting them or putting them under the microscope.